right. Welcome back to the Inner Growth Podcast. This is Bloater Punch, and we've got Samichpunch and Baby Punch with us. So happy Merry Christmas, I should say, to both of you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas. So real quick, some housekeeping items. So we have a giveaway planned. Da, 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 ba, da, ba, ba, ba. We have a giveaway planned, and we're gonna test out a live format. So if you guys are interested in this podcast, next week we're gonna test out a live stream on YouTube Live. And on that YouTube Live, we are going to try and give away a free summon of a Gen 0 Thief and a Gen 0 Archer. So if you qualify for that giveaway, you will get freely, without cost to you, you will get the product of that summon between a Gen 0 Thief and a Gen 0 Archer. So you will not pay summoning costs. And even if we summon a Mythic Dark Knight or whatever comes out of there, you're getting it. So please be sure to follow the instructions on Samichpunch's Twitter, and he will instruct you on how to enter into that and timing and all of that. So make sure you're up to date. Okay, so enough of the housekeeping items. Let's jump in. So we're going to try and adjust this format. There's going to be a newbie section where we talk to some newbie items that I think are still translatable to most of the audience. And then we're going to have a whale section where we talk to maybe some more nuanced topics. And then if we have time, we'll hit some miscellaneous questions. Okay, so we're going to dive into the newbie section now. Chapter 1, newbies. So one topic I thought was pretty interesting, and Samichpunch had some good ideas about this, is, hey, I'm leveling a hero. How do I know which stats to level? And do I always, or should I always align my leveling stats with the professional alignment? So that's one facet. And the other facet is, how do I factor in some other nuances like, hey, my strength is blue, but I'm a priest. Do I care about strength? Is strength worthless to me? So we're going to be covering those topics now in terms of nuancing regarding leveling. So I'm going to turn the screen over to Samichpunch, who's going to actually walk us through the leveling of an archer, and we're going to see how he does that and how he's going to make certain decisions.
All right, so we're going to do a priest instead of archer. I actually have leveled up all my archers, but the question is a good one because I run into this every single time, and I'm trying to make a decision of like late game. Okay, some of my heroes are going to be full-time profession questers, and some of them I want to be combat oriented. And so for some heroes, the combat, I will call them the combat stats and the profession stats align, but some of them they don't. So an archer is a really good example. For profession, a good profession for an archer that aligns with its typical stat growth is a forager, because they have very high dex. But forager requires dex and int is not high on the archer's stats. For example, this awesome spreadsheet here, if you check out archers, they have 80% growth rate for dex, but only a 40% growth rate for intelligence. So not great.
Hey, so Samichpunch, remind me, what did Hubert say regarding stat growth and prioritizing stat growth, high stat growth attributes?
Yeah, so he said that generally speaking, the stats that have the highest growth rate for a specific class are going to be the ones that are best for them for combat. So, I'm looking here at an archer that's dexterity, strength, endurance. If you take a look over at like paladin, this guy's champ: strength, vitality, endurance, and strength.
So
and
mining's going to be perfect for him, right? Because he's already leveling strength and endurance.
Right. So you don't even really have to make this decision very much with a paladin between like, well, do I level stats based for their profession or based on combat? So the example we're going with here is a priest. So, if we think about it, priests are generally good at gardening because of their wisdom growth rate. So if you look here, priest has 80% chance to successfully roll +1 on wisdom, and their vitality is okay. It's 50. So wisdom, vitality, and then I guess if you were going strictly based on profession, you're not going to need endurance, intelligence, strength, or dexterity. So I would go with luck. Here, I think I'm going to go, I'm going to go more of a combat oriented build. And so if I'm looking at combat, I'm going to go wisdom and intelligence. And then, you have an option here. Endurance and vitality are pretty close to each other. But, and if you're ever like, we don't know, we're still speculating, but if you go to the docs, there are some very, I guess, generic details about what each of these do. For example, intelligence adds a multiplier to various actions, especially skills and magic. Wisdom adds a multiplier to magic attacks and skills and increases in magic defense. So wisdom and int are going to be great for spellcasters. But then it's like, okay, well, what do I do between vitality and endurance? Vitality helps impact your HP growth. Endurance, on the other hand, is more of like a defense. Like if you're thinking of like Diablo 2 or Diablo 3, endurance would be like the defense statistic, dodge, evasion, that kind of stuff. Well, I guess not. I wouldn't say dodge and evasion because I think that comes into play with agility, but it's your like resistances, whereas vitality would just be straight up HP growth. And so you're always trying to balance. I think once we get late game, we'll have to figure out like, well, what's going to benefit more defense and resistances or more HP. So I guess just to reiterate, this guy's got a good example of like having to decide, like if I'm just like, this guy is going to be gardening for the rest of his life.
Which is that's even hard to say though, because that could be the plan now. But we also know without the certainty regarding future questing and combat, that might be the right plan now. And then we're going to get later. So you might want to have a mitigating strategy to your point, because when combat comes out, it may be so attractive that you're like, hey, I really need this guy in combat. So had I prioritized a strictly profession build and you're already leveling him, because we talked about in the last episode, if you have level 1 commons that are strictly farmers, that may work out in the end. But if you have guys you're already leveling, that's where I feel like you might want to be more conservative about how deep you go on the quote unquote profession only streak. But again, that's just my thought.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I'm curious to see what Baby Punch's thoughts are here on this. But you're exactly right. Like you making a decision like this guy is going to be 100% gardener, and you're starting to level up things like trying to go hard on vitality and luck, wisdom, vitality, luck, the only 3 stats that would really impact gardening. That could come back to hit you later if you're like, I actually need this guy for combat and he kind of sucks now because I didn't level up any intelligence, or I didn't use my guy's blessings on intelligence. So that there's that to consider. But on the opposite side of that coin, it's like there could be quests, like high level gardening quests are going to require, but we don't know, right? Like, so it's just, but like the problem is, it's like we don't have like a rebirth token where we're going to be able to reset and redo things. So you've got an option of just don't level them up yet and wait, where you're burning a bunch of XP you could otherwise be earning, or you kind of just go down a path and you just lean into it. So,
yeah, the thing is,
what do you think, Aaron? Baby Punch?
Oh yeah, Baby Punch, please.
Yeah, so on this particular example that you have your priest, if you go back to the hero base stats, Samichpunch, you can see that, let's see, wisdom and intelligence is the best growth stat for priests. And then you were kind of already leaning into this between endurance and vitality. If it's between those two for your third, and you're not quite sure if this is going to be a combat-oriented hero or just a profession-oriented hero, I mean, you could always just choose vitality. It's not going to be the end of the world. It might actually be a better case scenario when it comes to combat, but it also benefits your profession.
Let me ask you this. What if vitality was 20? What would you do?
That would definitely change that that decision process, and I would probably go with endurance. So just the sense that 50 and 60 are really close, and vitality is going to benefit your profession questing, and combat could be quite a ways down the road. So we might just have profession quests for the next several months, and so it might be the only thing we do for a while. So vitality is going to have some good advantage right there. If you choose that over endurance, you'll have some immediate benefit.
Yeah, and I want to come back to something you said though, Samichpunch, which is, hey, you have this option where, hey, there's so much uncertainty, I'm not going to level. But my personal opinion would be there is so much more benefit to not Because again, the only way to level and the only way to grind XP is time. So if something changes, oh, now we know we should have done it this way, your loss will be heavily offset by the fact that you are a high level, it'll be marginal loss. Whereas if you wait for the level 1 and okay, now we know we're going to start leveling, that's going to take you forever based on it's going to take you many, many, many quests to catch up. And while your leveling may be more efficient that way, it seems like you've lost more than gained. Again, my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Time's going to become a really valuable portion of like a hero's value. If you hit level 10, for example, on a hero, I mean, there's a lot of time put into that somebody's going to be willing to pay a premium on. And I don't think the market has really reflected that, because really all we have is like a ton of level 2s, a few level 3s. But I think as we start to see a disparity between higher levels and like level 1, people are going to be willing to pay a premium for that. So I'm also, if I've got the runes, I'm leveling up. One thing to quickly on vitality too, just if you're ever wondering, like vitality is probably a pretty safe bet. And I think other, bards and other members have brought this up. It's going to increase your HP growth. And, especially here with gardening, where it's one of the profession's stats, having high amount of vitality is going to impact your HP growth. And, stacking that early, probably not a bad idea to have, be able to capture, hopefully, that increased vitality on subsequent level ups, as opposed to stacking HP like way later in the game, vitality way later in the game. There's probably some compounding effect of having it earlier.
Can you flip your hero card, please, Samich?
Yeah.
So for those of us who are bad at DeFi Kingdoms, what does the blue strength represent, and how should we factor in the blue and the green into our calculations?
Yeah, so blue is a slight increase to the success rate for your primary role and your secondary role. Green is just a flat bonus of +2. This blue is so nominal at the time that I don't really factor it into my decisions almost at all. But Hubert has mentioned that there will be ways to increase this with items and otherwise. So I would just kind of stay tuned for that, but I'm not so essentially 2%, like strength 2%. So 2% on the primary and 4% on the secondary. So just as an example, if you go over here to priest, his primary, so the way it works is he'll level up and it'll roll through every single one of these: strength, dex, agi, vite, and it'll try to do a +1 for each of them. And this is the success rate, 30. So strength has a 30% success rate. With the blue buff, it's a 32%. So on the primary. Secondary is always 25% of that. So it gets a +4 bonus instead of a 2. You see that +4 right there. So the success rate for strength will be at 11.5 rather than 7.5.
So each stat gets 2 rolls, correct? A primary and a secondary. And that's where that blue stat would factor in whichever attribute it's highlighting.
That's right.
Now, what's weird is the market seems to really factor this in. And, anytime, it's like, oh, and it's blue and it's an extra like 60 joule, or some crazy amount. So the market always seems to value weird stuff sometimes. And I've seen blue highly valued in certain trades, certain sales.
So, real quick on that. So as we first got some tidbits from Hubert, for example, he told us that professions was going to be roughly a 10% increase. We didn't think that was going to be very impactful. And so this game is very much still developing and progressing. And so even though we know that the blue stat only gives +2, +4, like it could, and right now we're not really taking that into much consideration when choosing or purchasing heroes, but it very well could have a larger impact than we anticipated, just like the profession. We very much underestimated the value of having the profession gene, where we thought it wasn't going to play that big of a deal as a 10% kind of bonus on top. So that might come into play a lot bigger down the road as they realize, hey, this is really underwhelming. We need to make some changes with this and make it an important factor in the game.
Okay, I thank you for both for that input. Can we let's level up this hero, because I want to make sure we have time for some of the whale discussion. So let's level up this hero and see how Samichpunch fares on the RNG for stat increase.
Yeah, and just one quick item. So as we're sitting here waiting for it, so it's going to go through and roll for each of these stats one time for the primary class and then again for the secondary class. And then what we were seeing over here is you get a plus. So like this wisdom highlighted right here, that's a guaranteed. I get +1 on that. Each of these two that is int invite, that means I have an additional 50% chance. So it's not an additional on top of the roll rates over here. It's just another chance, like another bite at the apple at a 50% chance success rate.
So how many ints could you theoretically get maximum? Now that we know
+3, +3.
Right. Okay. Because I guess there's 3 columns on the level up, so any stat could only hit 3, correct?
Yep. So let's see if I get rug pulled here, which seems to be the case.
And what would be the
most of my level ups.
maximum benefit total? Is 18 theoretically possible, or what is the max?
I mean, in a perfect world, so this was a pretty good one. So I got
not
1,
18.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I mean, you could have 8 primary, 8 secondary, and 3 bonus.
8,
So
16,
19.
19. Wow.
Yeah, 19 would be perfect.
What's the highest you guys have done?
I've gotten 12 before.
I have not broken 10.
I think I've gotten 13 once. And that was when I thought rarity influenced it. And then Samichpunch reminded me it's total RNG and not influenced by the rarity. Because one of my legendaries got like 13. And I thought that was due to being legendary, but Samichpunch corrected me. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to walk us through that, Samich, and leveling your hero.
Yep.
We're going to move on. All right, so let's dive into the whale discussion here. So here's something I observed and wanted to get your thoughts on that. And that is, if I have 12 fishers. So if I put a fisher here, and let's go to my inventory. By the way, I just got 2 eggs within the last week.
Let's go.
So hooray for me, right?
Nice.
And I've been waiting a long time, and I had friends in our friend group who got one day 1 and super salty. So glad I got 2 eggs. But my takeaway is, okay, so I could have a mission. I send out 6 guys fishing, and they come back with some lantern eyes and with some iron scales. And I know intellectually, and some silver fins, I know intellectually they're essentially currently worthless. They might bring back 20 or 30 cents, maybe 40 cents, maybe $1 or 2 if you get a silver fin. But it's essentially not super value, but it feels pretty good. I'm like, cool, I got these cool in-game items. And what I'm concerned about, or what just my observation on gardening is, I send out my gardener, and then when he returns, he gives me 0.00067 joule. And that doesn't feel as good. Now, the counter argument might be, well, he does get items, but some of the rewards are offset by that joule benefit for gardening, and seeing it in dollar or joule terms, to me, seems significantly less satisfying. And you combine that with the pain. So to me, it's not on, I'm not on beta, but the pain of having to single. So you go here, you have to single 1 gardener, you have to, it's a longer. So when I fish, I can send 6 out at a time, and they'll come back in like 15 to 20 minutes. With gardening, they have to spend it. It's less efficient. They have to spend the stamina. It drains over time. Then I have to come back 4 hours later and grab them. So it just, I don't know. To me, gardening is super painful, and wanted to get your thoughts on that. And then the second question I have for both of you is, I know Frisky mentioned a 4x benefit. Was that temporary, or should we expect that to be permanent benefit?
Baby Punch, you want to go ahead first?
Yeah, so as far as the psychological aspect of what the value of a bloater fish is and the 0.000, 3 joule, you've got to think of it in terms of your questing profession. And if you're debating whether to send your heroes into foraging or into the gardens, I think you're just going to do whatever their profession gene is, because as you level up your profession skill, as that number increases that's next to the profession, as that goes up, your rewards will start to go up. So it might feel bad right now as numbers are really, really marginal and nominal, but as that increases and as higher level quests come out, the rewards will start to increase, and we'll start to have better returns, and you'll see a better ROI from your hero. So you kind of just have to look past the multiple zeros, and just know that this is a level 0 quest, not even a level 1. So we're going to have multiple tiers of quests, and they'll have different ROIs. There'll be some that are higher risk, and as you increase your profession skill, you're going to start to see much better returns.
And let me make a quick observation on what you just said. It seems to me still, this I think is going to change, but it seems to me because nothing is gated, no one really values skill yet in terms of selling and buying. So, and I look at the tavern a lot. And so like, as you can see here, I'm just going to pull up one of my heroes. So like fishing 10, I actually bought this
Dang,
guy
dude, look at
recently.
those fishers, man.
Dude, I love me some fishing. I bought this guy recently at like 8 fishing, and he was like floor price. And I just don't think they care yet. But then my speculation is when there are gates and there are gates regarding this, the value in this will add significant value because the only way to get this is to grind. And so right now, though, I'm telling you, you can go to the tavern right now and find 8, 9, 10 fishers, and they'll sell essentially for a very, very nominal, if not identical to other crappy fishers, because no one has yet seen the value of these. Whereas for me, I feel like this is going to be super value. I like this. I'm prioritizing this. So just wanted to throw that in. But Samichpunch, your thoughts on psychological tax of gardening?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm on the same page as Baby Punch. Like you're just gonna need to run whatever profession they have. The profession gene is just too good not to run that. So I'm never going to not send my gardener gardening because it feels bad, pulling out 0.0, joule to, E raised to a certain power as opposed to like a bloater fish. But it is a good point. And Frisky mentioned that gardening is a bit of a whale quest, like that it was intended that way at the beginning. And it's a way to, capitalize a little bit more on your LP earnings and in a sense incentivize whales to keep their LP in the game. He did mention that, they do want the average player as well to be able to benefit from it. And so there are items, but it is, it's not, the drop rates are way less on items. Just the general, like, I guess herbs that you're getting, but we just don't know where that's going to go. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see, a lot of movement on that over the next several weeks. Who knows? But back to items, I will say Frisky did mention that the rune rate and the was it runes and eggs?
XP.
XP.
I think it was XP.
Is a bit, or no, is the profession skill level as well. The rate for those is higher. Both there's a reward multiplier right now, but also just the way that stamina is burned via gardening as opposed to foraging and fishing, that the drop rates are a little bit better on those.
And is that so was the 4x permanent or is that a temporary boost to incentivize immediate activity?
Yeah, so that's a separate thing from what I just barely mentioned with the increased drop rate for runes and profession skill level ups. But there is a multiplier going on right now, and it's been a little bit in flux. Hubert mentioned it was like 4x, and then Frisky said, well, we moved all of the quest fund into one pool now, and now it's essentially 10x higher. So we reduced the multiplier a little bit, but essentially we're sitting at about 4x right now is what it feels like, and what kind of Frisky mentioned it, like the back of the napkin math is, and that is supposed to taper off over time. And that, I think that the rationale behind that was to incentivize, because we've got fishers and foragers that are hitting 10 and then gardeners starting at level 0, and we want, my guess is they're going to try and roll out level 10 quests all together. And
that would feel bad if, hey, you were a gardener, sorry, you can't participate yet.
Yeah, so that was kind of the rationale they provided initially, was to get these gardening boosts, their skill level boosted up faster. And there's probably a lot of other, game theory going on why they're doing this as well. But so far it feels good. I'm vibing the 4x reward right now.
Okay, so let me throw out a little curveball here. Gardening to me represents positive price pressure because it incentivizes large holders, whales, to stay in the LP to leverage their gardener heroes. Mining to me now as it stands represents potential negative price pressure as it removes jewel or inserts additional jewel without having that factor with gardening, which is, hey, I've got to keep my money in this stake, and if it doesn't, mining's just like, hey, there's more jewel entering the ecosystem that you could potentially take out immediately. So thoughts on, well, I guess two questions for both of you. One, has there been any talk about what the mining rewards will be, or is it total speculation? And two, would you agree it represents negative price pressure, or do you see it from a different paradigm?
Go ahead, Baby Punch.
So honestly, my 2 cents on this is your garden rewards are essentially doing the same thing. You're getting new jewel into the game that you can essentially cash out. Your garden rewards from staking in the garden is new jewel that's being fabricated that you could instantly cash out. So I don't know that mining is going to have any different effect than, say, what gardening has already provided us.
I thought we had said initially mining rewards at first, at least, we thought were going to be significantly higher than what gardening rewards have been. I guess if we're saying they should be in line with what gardening rewards are approximately, although again, the mechanics with gardening, you have an LP pool, and depending on how big, like Samichpunch said, gardening rewards depend largely on how big your pool is, how much money you have staked, whereas mining is just going to be hitting your locked balance. I was anticipating mining to be much bigger. I thought at one point we were saying something like 6 joule a miner, and you could max 3 miners. Maybe it was 6 joule a day. I don't remember. So that it would be higher, especially for people who don't have these large pools. Hey, I have 100 locked joule. I'm going to be able to unlock that in a couple, a week or 2 or 3 weeks. So, I mean, could that change it? And I guess along with that, what do we know about mining right now?
Yeah, so I think that you're referencing back. So this was back in the days when we didn't have a very clear idea on profession gene, and Hubert was saying, it's just a flat, rough 10% bonus to whatever rewards you receive. And I think that whole profession gene mechanic has been completely reworked. But at the time he was saying, lowest tier, so it sounded like there would be breakpoints or thresholds for like depending on how much locked jewel you had, it would impact how much you could farm in the locked jewel mine. And I think he said like the lowest tier, we're talking like maybe 5 joule a day, and with a profession gene, 8 joule a day. And so I think that really impacted the way everyone was looking at things. Cause yeah, I mean, if you're pumping out 8 joule a day, whether that's a per day or a per hero and 3 heroes per day basis, that's a lot. Like compared to the gardening rewards, I would be shocked, to be honest, if that was still the case. So my thought is like, I'm not really holding my breath on that, and we'll just wait and see what happens. I suspect that it's been like completely reworked, and we'll see what happens. But to your point of like downward price movement, I think there will be an element of that, and it just depends on like how big of a number that is compared to like gardening, because like Baby Punch said, gardening is also, there's that several million jewel sitting in a quest fund that's now not emitting, but rewarding people jewel that was almost as though we're not in circulating supply. So, and that hasn't really impacted the price much. I mean, we hit all-time high today. So I think, I don't know that it'll be enough to really make the, drastic downward price movement.
So I want to bring up a final topic here, and that is there have been rumors about potentially down the road, this isn't anything, next week, but down the road, we could see some high risk, high reward missions or quests that could even result potentially in dead heroes, or heroes being removed or burned, or maybe being very removed, but potentially resurrectable, I guess, in some extraneous cases. So the question I have is, number one, I'm going to call it Samich, because I think he once quoted Frisky or Hubert or someone saying they'd never have a death mechanic. They're too valuable. And then recently, I think Samichpunch had mentioned that this could be a possibility. So the question for Baby Punch and Samichpunch is, what do you think about this idea of having a really high risk but very high reward? So we're not talking bloaters anymore. We're not even talking fuss runes. We're talking something potentially much more valuable, but The downside being, hey, you're going to risk I don't know what the floor is, $400, $500 NFT. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll go first. So you're right. I can't remember which volume of the Lost Annals of Gaia, but somebody had mentioned like, could your hero die? And Hubert was like, no, that would be like cruel. But I think that this is coming up not in the concept of like, your hero dying as a game mechanic, but more as being driven by a desire to have like a burn mechanism. Everyone loves burning tokens. Burning tokens is great. It reduces supply, yada, yada, yada. But in terms of NFTs, it can also be equally applied. I think this week we're seeing, hero floor prices really go down quite a bit. And some of that is probably driven, and I don't want to get into that right now, by the price of Jewel and hitting all-time high. But we also have, I think, if we'll get Mr. Zipper's report here soon, but like I think I saw like a 20% growth rate in heroes just this last 2-week period, so 10% growth. And when heroes are growing at that rate, and you don't have people wanting to buy at that same rate, then yeah, prices are going to go down. And I can see a lot of value in having, especially someone who has a giant bag of heroes and is like, man, I could earn some like really sweet items by sending them on these quests. And yeah, some of these might get burned, but it's like your fodder heroes, right? And you might be okay with doing that. And I think that the community as a whole should be excited about that, right? I think that's just generally good for the economy as a whole.
Okay, we're gonna play a little small game for Baby Punch here. Okay, based on how many heroes you have, and let's assume you have some bottom tier ones that you wouldn't mind losing or selling at discount. Again, we're just gonna play a game. We don't know what this is, but let's say there's a 20% chance it dies, and the guaranteed reward if you live is 10 Jewel. So the question is, would you do it? And if not, what would the reward need to be to risk a 20% death rate on a hero?
So honestly, just top of my head, if there was a 20% chance of death, I think the reward would need to be at least 20, if not greater, percent of the
Hero
cost
price.
of that hero. Yeah. So you need to have some sort of reward that is going to offset the potential death of a hero. And again, we don't really know quite the depths of what that really means. I know he spoke on that briefly to kind of lead us towards the fact that they want to burn some heroes. It's really heavy right now on the hero pool, and Samichpunch was just addressing this. And so as we slow down the summoning, hero prices, I imagine will come back up. But to your original question, I think you would have to have, if you're risking 20% chance of death, you'd at least have to have a 20% cost of that hero. And I don't know how that's, if you're sending one hero or a party of heroes on a quest. And off the top of my head, I would not send any super high valuable heroes
Burn
on
a
those
Gen
quests.
0 on a 10 Jewel run.
Yeah, he did say Gen Zeros would not be eligible to go on quests that have the potential of a hero death. But
yeah, he said we got to protect the gene pool. So
awesome. Well, thanks both of you. We're going to wrap there. So appreciate both your feedback. And again, to the listeners, make sure to stay tuned to Samichpunch's Twitter, where he will be announcing the live stream timing as well as the giveaway. So be sure to tune in for your shot to win a free summon of a Gen 0 thief with a Gen 0 archer. So
yeah, one quick item on that,
please.
Bloater Punch. So for anybody that's like really deep into like recessive genes and kind of some of the more advanced summon mechanics, I will note this is a D/R1 archer and a D/R1 thief, meaning they have about a 95% chance to pull through thief and archer for purposes of doing the advanced class check. So it's about, I think if you use the hero bot in Discord, a high 22% chance for a Dark Knight.
So this isn't your wizard miner situation. What I think Samichpunch is saying is you've got some good, and I don't know, I'll edit this out if he doesn't want me to say this, but Samichpunch and Baby Punch, we're sitting in Discord Samichpunch 7, boom, Dark Knight Mythic popped up. That's right, Dark Knight
Yeah,
Mythic.
yeah. No,
So-
that's right.
Don't.
So yeah,
I've
a lot.
actually summoned twice with it. I've summoned twice with this combo. I actually just after like figuring out more information about the dominant and recessive genes, I purchased the Thief a couple weeks ago at Floor. I essentially sold one of my other Gen Zeros and swapped them out. But I've summoned with it twice, and both have been a Dark Knight. Obviously, that's mega RNG, and I got super lucky because it should only be about a 23% success rate. But I mean,
So what you're
all I'm
saying is you
we're-
used all the luck already, and Dark Knight is way lower now.
or this maybe these things are just pumping them out.
Oh,
So
that's
we'll
true.
see.
It's like a blessed Gen Zero.
Right.
Gaia has blessed this Gen Zero. Got it. Awesome. So tune in for that, please. And thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks guys. Merry Christmas.
See
Happy
ya.
New Year.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.